everyone, welcome back to Reissued. If you're new here, my name is Andrew. Today we are starting the process of wrapping up the bedroom makeover. All of the major projects in that room are finished, but there are just a couple of things that I think will bring the whole space together and really push it across the finish line. I'll be revealing that in a few weeks, so stay tuned for that. But one of the little details that I want to address is the bed. I feel like it just looks a little bit bare, and so I want to add a little bit more color and texture to that. And what could be a better way for adding color and texture than a throw pillow? I roll. I gotta say that at this point, I'm just not a major throw pillow fan. I feel like they're just so impractical. And I feel like every time you sit down on a chair or lie down on a bed, it's like you have to move all this stuff out of the way, and where do you put it? But I can't deny that it's a really great way to infuse some color and texture into a space. And I think in the bedroom right now, we just need a little bit more life. So I think we're gonna do one cool throw pillow. I like those kind of like long, skinny lumbar type pillows. So because I'm a DIYer and I don't wanna spend very much money on this project, of course we're gonna DIY this. And because I'm indecisive and an overachiever and a YouTube content creator, I thought we should make a couple of different options, and I'll let you decide which one looks best in the space, and that'll help me kind of choose a direction to push this room across the finish line. So I think this is gonna be really fun. We'll pull out the sewing machine for the first time in forever and see what happens. Before we get started today, if you get to the end of this video and you decide that you like this project, you like this video, hit the like button. If you wanna see more DIY projects like this, and you wanna check out the bedroom reveal when that video comes out in a few weeks, be sure that you're subscribed. Let's jump on it. Okay, so this morning I went to the gym, and the gym happens to be right by Goodwill, so I thought I would just pop in there to see what they have. Let me show you how that went. All right, we're here at my local Goodwill. I'm gonna run in and see if they have anything that might be useful for this project. I'm thinking we might get lucky with the pillow that's the right shape that I'm looking for, or maybe something that we can use to stuff a different shaped pillow. Interesting fabrics, interesting colors, just trying to get some inspiration and possibly some materials. So let's go see what they have. There were so many throw pillows here at Goodwill. It was kind of overwhelming. Unfortunately, there weren't any of the exact lumbar shape that I was looking for. This one was the closest to that look, so I decided to purchase it just to see how it looked on the bed and if it was actually the right shape that I'm going for. I'm likely gonna return this one, but it'll be helpful to visualize it. In terms of creating the structure of the pillow, they do have some polyfill here for $10. I can always cut open any of these other pillows to get the stuffing, but I'm gonna check out what I have at home first. When pulling inspiration images for this project, I was drawn to these corduroy pillows where the fabric is spliced together at different angles for a graphic look, and the velvety texture of the corduroy gives a warm, cozy vibe. Once I checked out all the pillows in the home section, I spun through the men's and women's clothing in search of interesting fabrics. There were quite a few corduroy options between the men's and women's sections, but this warm, rusty orange skirt really caught my eye. The color is perfect, and while some of the other options were kind of stretchy, this fabric has no stretch at all. It'll be easier to work with and will hold its shape. So the rusty orange is a winner. So I left the store with that kind of homely pillow that was the closest to the shape that I was thinking, and of course the burnt orange corduroy skirt that I think would be great as one of our options. It already has that kind of diagonal piece together look that I was thinking, so I think this will be a perfect solution here. And so now I'm back at home, and I'm gonna rummage through my collection of fabrics to see what other options I might have on hand already. I do keep a lot of fabric on hand. I just can't help myself. I just think fabric is beautiful, and I've acquired so much stuff over time, so if we can use something today, that would be fantastic. Okay, so I pulled out a bunch of stuff that I thought might work for this. These three right here, I think came from my grandmother's attic. I think that maybe my mom had them at one point to sew with them. I'm not entirely sure. I really like this texture. It's kind of like a wool, almost like tweed kind of feeling in a way. I really like all three of these, but I thought this might be too similar to the doors on the wardrobes. I thought this might be a little bit too strong and graphic, and then this one is just a little bit more neutral and it would blend too much with the bedding. So we're gonna pass on these, but they were some strong contenders. And then over here, I have a couple of different raw silks. I think these are ones that my grandfather brought back from Thailand. They were in my mom's stash even before they were in my stash forever. I think we've used some of them on different projects before. I really like these, but I think they might be a little bit too saturated, and the silk is maybe a little bit too kind of fine looking. And so that brings me over here to what I've kind of narrowed it down to as my three options. This one here I picked up at Mood in New York when I was doing some stuff for my apartment up there back in the day. It's super stiff, kind of like a velvet. I like the texture and the color on this one. And then I also pulled this warm brown leather that I got off a damaged sofa at the REISSUED. I've always been kind of picturing some leather in there, even though the headboard thing is also leather. So it might be too much, it might be too neutral, but we're gonna give that a shot. And then of course we have our corduroy skirt that I got at Goodwill earlier today. Again, I love this diagonal seam detail, love this color. So I think these three are gonna be the three that I make for this video, and then you can help me decide which one really works best in that space. Okay, so I'm really excited about what I found today. I think I'm gonna hop off here for a little bit, kind of maybe do some deconstruction, some laying things out, kind of making a plan before I come back and show you the next phase in the process here. I know that certainly for the leather pillow, I'm gonna wanna put a different backing on it, so I'm not sewing leather to leather because I know how stiff that can make things and I don't really wanna mess with that. So I'm thinking that I might actually cut off the bottom of this thing that was hanging behind me. You may remember that we just put this drop cloth up in the last studio makeover video just to kind of see what it would look like. I think most people really liked how it looked, but I think we decided that it would be best to crop it right at the windowsill so it's not just like hanging down below. So if I crop off the bottom, that'll give me some extra fabric to work with, and it's a nice neutral and not too thick fabric. So I think that might work really well as a backing for the leather pillow and maybe for the blue pillow as well. But yeah, I'm excited about how things are coming together on day one. All right, we're back. I've been doing some planning and some scheming, and I think I have some ideas fleshed out. So let me show you what I'm thinking. First things first, for the corduroy skirt, I did rip apart all the seams on that to get each panel individually, just to kind of assess what was happening there. I always like to rip out the seams rather than cutting things apart, just to be sure that I have as much fabric as I possibly want. And also because I think that using the existing seams can sometimes be helpful in putting things back together. And so in this case, I'm gonna use that existing seam on the front to get that diagonal, and then I'm gonna add an additional panel at the side, joining it right where the seam was, so that I get the same diagonal of the fabric. I'll go ahead and stitch that together and then cut out my shape. Initially, I was gonna do 4 panels here with the seam in the center, but I think it's gonna work better to do 3 panels and make it a little bit more asymmetrical, rather than having the 2 inside panels be larger with the outside panels being like half as wide, right? I think that would look kind of strange. I put that pillow that I got from Goodwill on the bed just to kind of assess the size, but then I was looking up lumbar pillow sizes, and I think I want to go with a 14 by 36 for most of these. I realized that I returned the pillow to Goodwill without ever shooting it on the bed, so I guess you'll never know what it looked like on the bed. It was really ugly, but it was helpful for me as a reference for size, so I guess it was worth it. But yeah, for the rust colored pillow and the blue pillow, I think we're gonna go with that 14 by 36 inch dimension. On the blue pillow, it's gonna be super simple. My fabric's big enough to cut a piece in that size, so we're just gonna cut it out at those dimensions. And then finally, for the leather pillow, I was sifting through all of the various pieces of leather that I have in this color. There were the cushions off the sofa that I still have intact, but the seams weren't really lined up in the center on those, so I thought that might look strange. These panels looked like they were in the best condition, and I really liked the top stitching detail on them. They're not gonna be quite wide enough to do that 14 by 36 inch dimension. They're about 28 inches wide at the widest point. So I'm thinking that I'm just gonna do a smaller version here so that I can use the better looking leather. So now I'm just gonna jump on in and cut out my pieces.
First step for the aqua velvet and leather pillows is to cut the front piece to the dimensions of my desired pillow. I think 14 by 36 is a nice size for the lumbar pillow look. So let's use my ruler and cutting mat to help me get a nice square cut, adding 1/2 inch seam allowance on all sides. So technically I'm cutting 15 by 37. Since the leather is only 28 inches wide, I think we need to bump up the height to 16 inches to make the proportions work better. Again, I'm adding a 1/2 inch seam allowance everywhere. Before we cut the rust-colored corduroy piece, we need to attach the third panel to be sure that we have enough fabric to cut the whole piece in one go. I measure over from the seam and then cut along that line to get a straight edge. I pin that straight edge to the existing seam allowance from my side panel, right sides together, and then sew along that line. I'm using the aqua velvet pillow front as a pattern for this piece, since the pillows are going to be the same dimensions, and the blue velvet fabric is super stiff and non-stretchy. On the other hand, my corduroy wants to move and stretch a bit since it was cut on the bias to create these cool angles. Once I find the right placement with barely enough fabric, I can pin on the pattern piece and cut around. I'm glad I took the time to rip open the original seam since I needed all the fabric I could get. Now let's get some backings going. I use the aqua fabric again as a pattern to cut a piece from the drop cloth curtain remnant. Then I pin it to the corduroy, right sides together, and sew all the way around, leaving about a 6-inch gap at the bottom that I'll use to turn and fill the pillow. Let's repeat these same steps for the leather pillow. Only this time the leather is pretty impossible to pin, so I'm using some little sewing clips to secure the right sides of the leather and the drop cloth fabric together as I cut around. All of my pieces have that 1/2-inch seam allowance so that I can sew right along the edge of my presser foot. Each time I reach a corner, I make sure the needle is dropped, lift the presser foot, swivel my piece 90 degrees, and then drop the presser foot back down before continuing to sew. That gives a nice clean corner. Before we turn this, let's clip the corners at a 45-degree angle to prevent that excess bulk from bunching up in the corners.
Alright, so 2 pillows mostly down, 1 left to go. I'm really excited about the progress we made today. I was woefully reminded today. I don't know if I'm just out of practice or if I idealize my past projects or my skill set or whatever, but it's funny to go through the process here. I feel like anyone watching this that knows anything about sewing is like, oh my god, why are you taking so long to cut like a 14 by 36 inch rectangle? I feel like I did it like 10 wrong ways before I figured out how to get it right. You know, every project that I do here on my channel is kind of a one-off. Once I know how to do it, then I move on to something else that I totally have no idea how to do. So I'm just sharing my creative process here with you and hopefully giving you some ideas. In any case, I'm really excited with how these are looking and I can't wait to finish them up and get them on the bed. Alright, we're back. Today we're going to start working on the kind of aqua blue pillow. You know my motto here at Reissued, why do something simple when you could do something complicated? This could just be a normal solid colored pillow. I really enjoy a solid colored pillow. I think there's a time and a place for it, but to me it kind of begs the question, like, why did I bother making it myself rather than going to the store? Yes, to save cost, of course. Yes, to use some materials that I already had on hand, but also if we have an opportunity to customize, I think we should take it. So we're gonna be doing a little quilted detail on this. One of the things that's been really fun for me with decorating the entire house is to create sort of little Easter eggs or motifs or recurring patterns that happen throughout the space. So for this pillow, I was thinking of using the pattern that I used for my stained glass window. However, when I actually looked at the pattern, there were a lot of lines that sort of would be dead ends. So I think it would take me forever to finish each line off nicely. So instead, I'm gonna go with this pattern that's on the tile work in my studio. It has a lot of straight vertical lines and then in like a zigzag pattern. I think that should be pretty easy to stitch, and I think it will tie this room into that room. It'll give a little graphic element, a little bit of texture on this pillow, and just customize things a little bit further because we love to customize, can't help it.
I finally picked up a fabric marker that erases with water, and of course it's basically the same color as my fabric. But let's make the most of it and draw our vertical lines at 1.5 inches apart all the way across. I'm using a cotton quilting batting that I had on hand to give a little bit more definition and stability to the quilting. I cut it a little bigger in case anything shifts around. Okay, so the green thread looked like nothing. The brown thread looks better, but I'm having tension issues because I'm always having tension issues. So I'm gonna work on adjusting the tension a little bit, and then we'll see if we can't get this looking a little better.
Okay, so here's the deal. I got the tension situation worked out, but I decided that I don't like the thread color. I think what's working about the brown thread is that it's a thicker thread, an upholstery thread, so it actually shows up, but I just feel like the blue and brown color, it reads Walmart to me. I don't know why. I just have this connotation in my head, these two colors, it just looks like Walmart. And I need this to look like West Elm or Pottery Barn or something expensive. If I'm gonna spend this time on it, I need it to look right. So I'm gonna run to the store, pick up some thread, and we'll be back.
Now that we have the right tension and thread color, I can stitch down each line. I'm not worried about finishing off the ends of each line since the ends will be hidden in the seam allowance. Let's draw on the little zigzags to complete our pattern. These lines are roughly in the center of the piece, 6 inches apart, with a 45-degree angle zigzag. Once I cut off the excess, I can cut a back piece out of a scrap of natural muslin that I had on hand. I had planned to cut all 3 backs from the drop cloth, but I didn't have quite enough. So this should work just fine. Let's finish it off just like the other 2. I'm glad I opted to wait on buying any stuffing material since my mom had all these old pillows that she was planning to get rid of. Much better to use what we already have. I cut them open and moved the stuffing over. Pretty simple. I opted not to do a zipper or envelope closure on these pillows, so we can't use an actual pillow form. It's much easier to sew this way, but the lack of any extra layer of fabric means the pillows can sometimes look a little lumpy. So I found beating the lumps out of them to be pretty effective. And therapeutic. Once the pillows have the right amount of stuffing, I stitch them closed by hand. A ladder stitch is a great way to make the seam almost invisible. But a whip stitch can be helpful if your fabric is starting to fray, like mine was. I sewed the leather pillow closed off camera since the leather was trickier to puncture and took a bit more time, but not impossible. And with that, the pillows are done.
Alright everybody, I'm so excited with how the pillows turned out. Reveal time is upon us. I'm gonna go ahead and show you all 3 options on the bed so you can see how they look. I have ideas about which one I like best, but I want to hear from you in the comments. Which one of the 3 do you think works best with my bedroom space? Do we like the rusty red corduroy, the warm natural leather, or the quilted aqua velvet? Let me know in the comments. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.